Hello everyone and welcome back to PSGL here for round 8 of season 30 here in the PlayStation F6 tier for the Belgian Grand Prix. Drivers are just readying up now in the lobby ahead of today's event around the legendary Spa circuit. We return this week after a pretty thrilling race at the Jeddah circuit. Plenty of action in that race. A late safety car mixed up the field as well just a little bit. And it all allowed PSGL to get their second win of the season. Their first win of the season was in the very first race of the of this season of PSGL F6. So they very much bookended the season so far, but they'll be looking to try and carry on their current form to back that win up and do well again today. PSGL only with 2 podiums this season, but both have been wins, so it seems very much like they've got some good pace, but maybe they're a bit track specific in that sense. Currently, the championship leader, Kart Racer, has a 42-point championship lead, a huge lead over the field at the moment. That is more than 2 race wins, almost 3 race wins ahead of the field. So definitely still the favourite for this championship, but haven't won since round 5. And yes, that was only 2 races ago, so going to round 3 now. Round 8 now. But that is it's still a surprising drop in form for the usually consistent driver, with their worst finish yet coming last week. But of course, yes, Saudi Arabia, if any track was going to bring us some surprises, Saudi Arabia and Monaco are probably the 2 tracks we expected that from. Monaco Kart Racer won it, wasn't sort of messed with there, but Saudi Arabia made their own mistake, got a penalty, all sort of went wrong for the McLaren driver. But they're back this week, looking to return to that dominant form they showed early in the season. 5 podiums in the first 5 races, 4 of which were wins consecutively from round 2 to round 5. So the fact that Kart Race has been off the podium in the last 2 races is quite the difference. But I don't think it's quite early enough to start saying that there's a potential sort of switch in the way this championship's going, because that lead, it's immense. It's almost uncatchable, even with some dropping of form, because still 8 points were scored in Austria and 5 points scored in Saudi Arabia. That's still a decent amount for a driver in the title fight at the moment, and could certainly prove crucial come the end of the season. So Kart Racer still very much with one hand on the championship trophy. But now we are here in Spa for another race. Could all change, we never know. But yeah, some drivers to look out for at the moment. The previous 3 winners have all been different drivers, which is, as I pointed out, Kart Racer with that dominant early season is a bit new for us. So I'll take you through the last 3 race winners. PSGL, as I said, won last time out in Saudi Arabia. Before that one, IFR Fruitful won in Austria with a pretty exciting race for the win. Did their best to secure that one, and did indeed secure the maximum points on that day with the win, but not quite as strong in Saudi Arabia. However, I say that, they got 2nd place, but perhaps could have been more. They were up in the fight all day long, but that late safety car separated the top guys out that little bit on strategy, and cost Fruitful a real chance at the win there. But definitely something to watch out for, because they have been in some really strong form recently, and definitely can't be removed from contention for this race win. Then, before Fruitful, the race winner before that in Hungary was, of course, Kart Race, though I've spoken so much about this season. They took a surprise win in Hungary, nailing the strategy, getting everything right, with a lucky safety car perhaps involved, but still, you know, he got some luck and he really maximised it. And took the win there. So that's 3 drivers in 3 races that have won. Will it be 4 drivers in 4 races today? Could we see someone new perhaps get in the mix? Some drivers definitely to look out for. Milan perhaps was the driver more deserving. Wait, let me just go find Milan quickly. Yeah, Milan put in a pretty good drive a couple of times this season, so yeah, they're definitely someone to keep an eye out on. Chiquito has put in some strong drives so far this season as well. 4th in the championship, Jonah, the highest driver in the championship without a win. They are here today, and they'll be looking to try and make something happen here at the Spa circuit. lowest driver in the championship currently to have a podium was Mucoletto, who got a podium, second place in Monaco. Very impressive drive there. So they are indeed racing today, actually. So yeah, they'll be looking to try and regain that form that they've showed earlier in the season and try and bounce back a little bit up to the performance that they have shown previously. So definitely good enough to do it again. And as I say that, they go off the road, but looks like they're perhaps having some troubles out there on the circuit. No one yet to no one's already with a lap on the board. Everyone yet to set a lap time. Perhaps track limits catching out quite a few drivers here because we're quite a way into the session, and for no laps to be set is a bit of a surprise here. Yes, there's lots of drivers to look out for us. Finally, the first lap is on the board. Sparks goes to the top of the times with a 1:42.259 here, but all those other drivers will be looking to beat it, and indeed they do. Jonah, fourth in the championship, goes first provisionally here. 30 minutes left in the session, and also only 2 drivers on the board make that 3. It's a strong gap up front as now Yagazan gets a lap in there on the medium tyres. Jasak also with a lap in there, and more drivers starting to cross line. Lynx goes 4th, Fruitful goes 5th there. Seems fairly close, especially for a track of this length at the moment, with not many drivers seeming that far off the pace. But of course only 7 laps on the board at the moment, so it's hard to get a good idea, as that is, I believe, Chiquito, who has jumped up into 3rd in the timings now. Pretty good lap time there, but still 4 tenths off the fastest, which is a bigger gap than usual, but of course a longer track than usual here. And unlike Saudi Arabia, despite both tracks being the 2 longest on the calendar, Spa is of course that slightly bit longer. However, also it's a much more technical circuit. It is take another circuit and make it longer effectively. It's a very sort of traditional circuit, lots of corners, lots of really technical parts of the racetrack, compared to Jeddah last time out, where it is still a very long circuit, but a lot of flat out corners, a lot of high speed sections, and a lot of long straights. So that sort of length doesn't come from the technical, doesn't come legitimately, if that makes sense. That track is long because it's got long straights rather than because it's a very long lap. It's a weird way of saying it, I know. But Spa throughout, of course there are some very high speed parts of Spa, but for the most part it is a very technical circuit, and the drivers are showing that so far as this track. Most recent winner up in 2nd on the times at the moment. Drivers lapping this great circuit right now. Many famous corners come from this circuit. Similar to Silverstone, has that sort of effect in Formula 1. Monaco, another track like that. Monza, another one, where there's just an iconic circuit, but also has iconic corners that a lot of people remember the names of, which is, of course, one of those big things of sort of when you think of a track that people love and enjoy. Usually they've got some pretty famous corners on it, because it seems sort of like a track that has pretty sort of forgettable corners will be a forgettable track. Whereas Spa, you think of Spa, you think of Eau Rouge, you think of Raidillon, you think of La Source, Les Combes, Pouon, Blanchemont, so many great corners on this track. It really is one where you sort of, you know what you've got when you hear about it, compared to perhaps a track like Jeddah, where you sort of, there's not really any corners that you sort of really stand out to you, because it just, I suppose it's what comes with a new track in general, but still is something that is the case. "14 times on the board now, starting to get a bit more action on the racetrack." I say that, we've always had a lot of action throughout the session, but this is the first time really that the action has not been invalidated action, as 14 lap times up there right now. 5 drivers yet to set a lap time at the moment. They are Vanderbrug, Kart Racer crucially, as they are on an lap at the moment, Charlie Moon, Micheletto and Milan. You know what we'll do? We'll watch Kart Racer's lap on board here as he makes his way into La Source now. Gets into the apex, a small lock up on the right front, but keeps the speed through the corner, and this is an invalidated lap time, so not going to be much use watching this one, unless it's a glitch, but it doesn't appear that way. So yeah, shame for Kart Racer there. Looks like they're having some issues in this session, which we have seen a couple of times this season. My Kart Race has been a bit late setting a time on the board. That has not been his strength qualifying, really. It's quite a couple times from memory this season he has qualified quite far down the order. But I'd say that it's a pretty big red. That quite far down the order for kart race was anything outside the top 3, really, let's face it. But he has, I believe, at least twice qualified outside the top 10 this season. Maybe that's to help him on strategy. I believe he's got a podium in both of those races. And there may have been other races, of course, where he had issues as well. But yeah, the McLaren driver qualifying has not been quite as strong as the races for him, but at the end of the day, it's the races that give you the points. And that is where he has been just so perfect this season. The roar of the engines here in the quite hilly area of Belgium, the Ardennes forest. That's what really gives this track its uniqueness when it comes to the undulation of the track. Lots of elevation changes with cars going up and down as we see kart race it come into the pits there. Charlie Moon also invalid on their lap, so lots of invalidations out there still in this session. But yeah, that does seem a common theme at the moment. But mistakes perhaps hurting these drivers as well. You know, invalidation is a mistake at the end of the day. But I imagine, you know, this track being such a difficult one, it's a strange one because it does have tight track limits. But maybe I'm mistaken, but when I think of tracks that are tough track limits, I don't always think Spa. But if you do have a sort of a deeper think about it, it is a track where it makes sense to have these track limit issues, because it almost feels like a lot of these corners do have that little bit of runoff, but not. It's enough to invalidate, but not enough to sort of stop you if you have a spin. Because usually when you think of tracks where there's easy to invalidate, it's at corners with big runoff areas, like Austria, where there's lots of runoff area there. Very hard to find the wall at the Rebel Ring. Whereas here, I think most people can agree, much easier to find the wall at Spa with the high-speed nature. But that sort of, it's not because of grass and gravel runoff, it's all tarmac, and there's all a decent amount of it. It just seems like because of the nature of the forest around the circuit, it means that the barriers are quite close, with not much choice for the drivers. However, speaking of the sort of barriers and where they're positioned around here, there is some track changes currently being done to the Spa circuit, or may have already been completed as of this time, which have made some quite significant changes to the circuit, widening of some runoff areas, adding a couple sort of alternative layouts for some corners, but that is all in aid of bringing MotoGP to the Spa circuit, which I think is something that a lot of people will certainly enjoy, as Jonah has, I think we've got some timing issues here. That's a strange one. Correct me if I'm wrong, I've just seen him put in a lap time of a 41.8, but he's on his way into the pits at the same time. Something's gone a bit wrong there, I'm not quite sure, as Milan goes second there with a pretty strong lap, apparently purple on the final sector, but we know the game isn't always reliable with sector times. But yeah, that is as I was saying, with MotoGP being able to come here, it does have different requirements for a circuit, which of course have meant changes had to be made to the track. And I think Formula 1 and all racing around here needed to have some changes done to the layout of Spa. Whether people like it or not, it is getting too dangerous. It was almost scary watching a race, because if you saw yellow flags and you didn't see what the cause of it was, or it seemed like they were hiding the cause of it from you, that's when it's sort of very scary. And that's, as a viewer, it's hard to imagine what these drivers feel when they race around here. Of course, in real life that is. But yeah, perhaps needed some updates, so we'll have to wait and see how significant the differences are. Yeah, at the moment we've got qualifying going on, so we'll focus on that, shall we? But yeah, Jonah still top, 2 temps clear of Milan, as Jonah is now back out on the track. Is this a flying? It doesn't say outlap, but he was in the pits not long ago. And he's low on fuel. Was it? Maybe it was showing me his teammate when it was apparently showing me him. Or maybe I'm just not very bright and was looking at Van der Brugge when it was actually Jonah. Who knows? That is definitely, yeah, I think it was definitely all Van der Brugge we were watching earlier, because different car number. Maybe I should learn those, that would make life a little bit easier. Maybe see what colour helmets everyone uses, that might help as well. But yes, it is Jonah, currently top of the times, and I believe about to return to the pit lane, so we'll switch over to someone else here. Milan also potentially on an in lap here, also low on fuel. Istjike on a flying lap though. Let's see what this lap's going to make for Istjike, flying into this twisty section of the lap. Probably the toughest part of the lap here in Spa. Lots of consecutive medium speed corners. You make one mistake at the start of this, it'll hurt you through hours. 2 attempts up on the lap is Istjike. Currently on a lap good enough to go second, but if they can keep up their sort of consistent improvement through each sector, this lap could go P1 here. But Istjike low on fuel. Will they pit or will they complete this lap time? It's looking like a solid lap time, so I think they'll complete it, and maybe that'll be their final lap of the session as they send it into the final chicane, clipping the apex there, and clips the second part of the bus stop chicane. Third gear out of it, DRS open. Across the line, Istjike goes fastest in the session by half a tenth over Jonah in second place. Great lap from Istjike. Istjike really hooked it all up there, and now we'll probably have to limp their way back to the pit lane as their fuel appears to be running out here. Trasmike, his teammate, out on the racetrack as well. Looks like they're on their way in though. So we'll go see if there's anyone else on the racetrack. Charlie Moon's is on the track. Are they on a lap though? Yes, but it's invalid. Charlie Moon having some real issues here in this session. And speaking of issues, kart racer still yet to sell a lap. Will only really have one more chance at it in this session with how long's left. So Travis Leader kart racer could face some trouble here if they invalidate that lap. But as a commentator, I don't want to wish bad luck or bad fortune on anyone, but if kart racer was to start at the back of the field, I think we'd see one hell of a charge up the order, as we've seen several times this season. So I wouldn't be against a nice mix-up of the grid, but at the moment Istjike, fastest race winner last time out. I think at the moment in this sort of top group, Jonah really strikes me as someone going to want to try and get this pole position, because of course Jonah, highest driver in the championship hour and win, 4th in the championship, but the top 3 all having wins so far this season. You'd imagine Jonah is capable of getting that win, just not quite had the fortune go their way yet this season, not quite hooked it all up themselves either. So this could be a chance for Jonah if they can really sort of take that pole and try and drive away in the race. But you've got to imagine Jonah's really hungry for this win at the moment. Try and get them in their car first across the checkered flag. It would I'm sure mean a lot to Jonah, looking to try and get that first win. But yes, so far not yet come this season. But 4th in the championship is not a bad place to be. And nonetheless, I mean, a second place, it still wouldn't be a bad result, you know. Jonah consistency, it has been one of the biggest points for everyone this season, kart racer particularly. I know, of course, he had those 4 wins, but it's still obviously helpful to an extent. That sort of he's always been up there, whereas other drivers have had some DNS and some non-point scores. So that I always say that consistency is the most important part of a title fight rather than raw speed. But yes, just waiting now for some of these drivers to start their laps. I believe Milan is going to be one of the first to cross the start-finish line in this sort of top group. Trasmike is on an out lap at the moment. Micheletto just about to start their lap now. Across the line they go. The Alpine driver trying to jump up the order with 1 podium to their name so far this season, looking to try and get another today. Right on board now, if they go up. Eau Rouge and Radion, 2 of the most famous corners in motorsport. DRS open now, down the Kennel Straight towards the Les Combes chicane. Could definitely see some action here on lap 1, but for now it's qualifying, and Micheletto is trying to get this lap as perfect as possible. Trying to use the correct amount of curve, big snap there, bigger wobble going through the Les Combes chicane. Might cost Micheletto a bit of time, was definitely going to push him offline just a little bit through there, but seems like gathered it up nicely and has continued to push here. Micheletto going for a pole position so far, but let's see how this lap unfolds. Behind them you've got some other big contenders on lap as well. This is small correction on the entry to Pouon there. And now into this little twiddly S section. Got to get every single apex perfect. Just get the first one wrong and the rest of the part of this track you will be struggling. So flying, and that's going to be off the track, and it's invalid. Micheletto up on their lap time, and they've invalidated here, and that will cost them their lap time. Yakazana's also backed off Milan here. They're on a lap trying to go up the order. The part of the track where, of course, we saw Micheletto invalidate, they have not. Milan keeps this one going, and on current pace could be up there fighting for pole position. Jake Marsh jumps in up at 4th there, just ahead of Yagazan. And the flag is now out, so these will be the final attempts for everyone here. Flying into the bus stop chicane goes Milan. Will this be a pole position for the Aston Martin driver? He goes third, not enough there, but it's close margin still. Jonah, now they're making their way through the final chicane. Now this lap so far has been enough for pole position, but will it be the first spot on the grid? It will. Jonah takes it with a big margin to second place, a tenth and a half. Significant gap there. Let's see who else is on the lap. Jake Marsh is still pushing by the looks of things. Yakazan is not pushing. Trasmike is pushing, so we've got a few drivers still out there trying to set a lap time here. As we see Trasmike weaving their way through here. Yakazan has retired from the session. One of the most important parts of the lap. Again, I'll say it every time we go through there. Trasmike comes out of there flat out from air out, but invalidates the lap crucially. And that is their chance of pole position over. They were only improving marginally, but that's all you need here. Was only 6 tenths off, maybe wasn't going to be a pole, but now will be 10th. Possibly one of the worst places to be on the grid. As Kart Racer, meanwhile, has jumped up into 6th place, so they will be saved there by a good lap at the end. But still, only 6th at the moment. As we go on board with Jake Marsh through Vaughan now, currently sitting 7th. Only 2 point score so far this season for the Williams driver. Centered into the chicane. Looks like they might be a little bit deep. Getting into the second apex, third gear. What's the traction like? It seems alright. The DRS is open, and Jake Marsh can't improve there. Small mistake, and that's all that it needed. Trasmike, of course, with that invalidated lap time. Charlie Moon will be the final car to cross the line here. Where will the Alfa Romeo driver put themselves? Nowhere, it seems. Close qualifying at the front, but it is Jonah who takes pole position for the Belgian Grand Prix here in F6. Sparks will line up alongside him on the front row of this trike. Race winner last time out in third. Milan in fourth. Fruitful, race winner 2 races ago, is in 5th. Kart Racer is in 6th. Championship leader, of course, in 6th. Then you've got Jake Marsh GP in 7th. Yakazan in 8th. Micheletto in 9th. Lynx rounds out the top 10, with Trasmike being the first to have free choice of tyres for this race. Strong qualifying there for a few different teams. Red Bull can't be too disappointed. One car just outside the top 10 with free choice of tyres, the other one top 3. Other teams that have done well include, of course, Haas. Got pole position, that's always a good thing to have. And his teammate not that far outside the top 10, so can definitely make something happen from there. Tyre strategy in Belgium, usually quite a simple one. It's a one-stop, soft to medium or medium to soft. However, with the walls so close here and the speeds so high, the safety car is never far away. So a late safety car could certainly mix things up here, or even an early safety car, allowing those on these soft tyres starting to pit whilst those on the mediums have to stay out. It could all change things here, so don't rule out anyone until that checkered flag falls. Drivers on the grid just getting ready now for this race. Looking ahead for what will hopefully be an exciting Grand Prix. Gaps fairly small in qualifying, especially for a circuit of this length. Should lead us to have quite good racing. Lap 1 will certainly not be one to miss, as sadly Micheletto appears to have lagged out here with some connection issues. Hopefully that doesn't cause any issues to the lobby overall here. But yes, lap 1 will be one you don't want to miss. The charge up towards Lake Holm. We could see them 2, 3, maybe even 4 wide. Throw back to 2018, of course, when we saw the Force India pair either side of the championship contenders Vettel and Hamilton. As Milan has also left the session here. Certainly having some issues. A couple of drivers having some connection issues. And I believe we may need a lobby restart here. Just when we're getting ready for what's potentially going to be a very exciting race, we're going to have to take potentially a bit of a break before the race starts, as seems becoming a commonplace in some situations. We have had some connection decisions. You can see here the drivers are leaving the session, and we await the restart. More and more drivers now leaving the session. Kart Racer there going as well. Let's check, is there any new invites out at the moment? I have not received anything just yet, so no lobby looks to be up yet. As now I believe only now the host has left. But yes, those of you who are currently watching, please do leave your predictions for this race down in the chat. And who are you expecting to make some moves early in this race? Here's a nice easy question for you. Who do you think will be leading come the end of lap 1? We'll get the answer that much sooner than the winner and things like that. Will it be the pole sitter? Or will it be someone else? As the cars now go for the formation lap, but of course with some lobby issues, this will not be the actual formation lap, sadly. So we will await further news on this one. As yet, the session has sadly broken. So we'll just sit back and wait for the new lobby to be created. Hopefully it won't be too long, so don't go anywhere. Or if you do go somewhere, maybe make a cup of tea or get a little snack to eat watching this race, because once this thing does go 5 lights out, it will be one to watch. We've seen previously this season lots of great racing, so I doubt that will change today, especially at a track like Spa. A track that really encourages some good racing here. The weather will be dry for the race, for those wondering, so that shouldn't be too different. And whilst we wait, we will just have a look at the pole-sitting Haskar. Number isn't right, but we'll say it's the pole-sitting Haskar of Jonah. Just check again, see if there's any invites received. Not yet, sadly. But if you do go anywhere, don't go long, because this is going to get exciting soon. Maybe go check up on one of the other PSGL streams that are currently live. Of course, we've got some very exciting ones happening at the moment, so maybe go check out how everyone else is doing, see which drivers are doing well in each tier at the moment. But of course, do come back in about 5 to 10 minutes time and watch the F6 race here, because it will be an exciting one. Jonah looking for that first win. Whilst the battle for the first in the championship at the moment may not be especially close, the battle for second definitely is, with just 4 points separating second and third, and then 5 points further back to the driver in 4th place. Only 3 drivers have won so far this season, those of course being Istchike, Kart Racer and Fruitful. 4 wins, and the most of any driver, of course, goes to Kart Racer, our championship leader, who has 5 podiums so far this season, the most of any driver on the grid. A driver currently looking in very strong form is driver second in the championship. Fruitful is off on the back of a first and a second place, 2 impressive results for the Ferrari driver, who will now be looking towards perhaps a bit of a charge to try and catch up to the championship leader. Of course, any driver looking to chase that championship will need a bit of luck to go their way. But still, Fruitful, I'm sure, will be pushing as hard as they can and putting pressure on Kart Racer in the McLaren to try and knock him off his game, push him into a mistake, into an error that maybe just lets this championship fall back into a position where it's not just dominant. And with Fruitful off the back of 2 very strong results, could certainly be the person to do that as Kart Racer. Not in great form. Kart Racer's points scored in the last 2 races is 13 points. before that race, before round 6, the lowest points scored by kart racer in a single race was 10, with the others all being 16. So those last 2 races not been strong for the McLaren driver, but we'll be looking at a bounce back after a decent qualifying position here. Looking further down the championship, some drivers sort of perhaps flown under the radar this season. There are quite a few drivers who are yet to score big, and perhaps only showing signs of future potential, but not quite being there yet. Just joining the new lobby now, so can hopefully get this one back running shortly. Only 14 drivers so far this season have scored more than 10 points. Then we have Chaza on 9, Micheluzzi on 6, with Milan on 5, JMarshTP on 4, Dommel on 4, Straduzzi on 2, Charlie Moon, Jasak and Yarrow all on 1. Sadly, it would appear that I'm going to have to restart my game to get this to work, so there'll be a new stream in just a few moments' time, so don't go anywhere.